Shemai friendly hi and welcome back to my channel. My name's CaitlinAnwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And I'm continuing with the Africa Zoo today with a lion habitat. I thought the lions would go perfectly next to the Western lowland gorillas because the lions in Planet Zoo are West African lions. So I thought having two West African animals next to each other kind of made sense. And I love the big cats in this game, so I really wanted to include some big cats in the zoo. And the lions are just absolutely beautiful, so I wanted to make them beautiful habitats. I was having a little nose on Google at some other lion habitats in real zoos, and I seen this illustrated picture with a lion stood on this really large rock on top of like a river, with guests stood opposite the rock, and I just took a little bit of inspiration from that. So I thought it'd be nice to put the water right up against the glass barrier so the guests could see a little bit of like an underwater viewing as well. I don't think the lions technically do swim though. When I was testing this and doing my pretties at the end, what I call my pretties is the part where I show you how the animals interact with the habitat that I built. So I'll go in and go into the camera for the animals and show you how they walk around the whole habitat. And I kind of got that from Sorted Food. It's kind of, I'm not even sure whether anyone really watches that sort of thing if they watch gaming things, but I watch all sorts of videos, so maybe. But Sorted Food is a cooking channel, and they are like clips of the food that they've made. They're sexies, and I kind of got it from that, I think. They don't even call it sexies anymore. Oh wow, I've been watching Sorted Food for years. I kind of got it from that and made it a little bit more family friendly, I guess. Maybe a little bit asexual too. I can't switch that off. Yeah, I think it's nice. Like, instead of just calling it an outro, I call it my pretties. I really love including waterfalls in my habitats, but my game and my PC do not like it when I include waterfalls in my habitats. The special effects on this game really affect your FPS, and you may notice that when I do actually get into my pretties as well. I will try to edit out as much as I can, but my computer and this game hates it when I put special effects in. So to minimize that, I try to use the waterfall that came with the aquatic pack. This is all one object, which is great for me, because to make a waterfall in this game you need like so many of those little black nodules to create the waterfall. You need the top part, the middle part, and the bottom part, whereas this is just one object, so it's great for me. And I just had this image in my mind of the lion stood on top of the waterfall, like looking over, kind of like Pride Rock, but maybe a little bit more interesting to look at. And I wanted to make like a cave underneath the waterfall. It'd be great if we could actually see the waterfall through the cave, but because I used that one object, it doesn't really work out that well. But I wanted to use the terrain to create a hard shelter. I want everything to feel really natural and feel like almost realistic. I'm a little bit hesitant to say realistic because I don't think I make the most realistic habitats. Like last week I built a skate park for gorillas for this zoo, so I'm not really following complete realism for this zoo at all. And to tie in with the waterfall, I wanted to make sure that I have plenty of rocks around this cave to blend everything in nicely together. My first inspiration for this habitat was like a pile of rocks on top of a river, so I wanted to make sure I had lots of rocks in this one. It's probably one of my favorite things to do when I'm building habitats, is to place rocks. Building buildings isn't like my favorite part. You probably could have guessed that with the last video that I posted, the food court exhibit building. It's not my favorite thing to do, and it's like really super time consuming, so I kind of struggled a little bit more with that one than I did with this habitat. And I've also had a cup of coffee since I recorded that video, so I'm feeling a little bit more energetic. And I'm gonna tie this bit into the viewing area for the guests as well, and I'm gonna put animal talk at this point too, to gather guests to this area. Oh, I've kind of forgotten about those waypoints. What are they called? Like viewing points? Points of interest? There's like a thing for that. I know I put one on the bridge overlooking the penguin habitat, but I probably could have used one down here as well. Completely forgotten about that. That came in an update a while ago now. To add in a little bit of a pop of colour, because the rocks were blending in with the terrain, which I kind of like, but it also makes the habitat look really samey. There's not a lot of colour in with the rocks and the terrain, so I added in some aquatic plants along the edge of the like little river that I'd built. Usually when I build habitats, I like to put some greenery and some plants near the water, especially with habitats like this, because this is in Africa. I know this is like the grasslands one, but it feels very dry, I guess, so I don't want to put too many plants in, but it's nice to always pop some plants in near the water, because they would definitely be able to grow near the river. And the elevated pathway that I used for the skate park is a really good viewing area for the lions as well, so that'll double up for the both of them. And I cheated a little bit here. I guess it was a cheating if it's in the game. I grabbed my little meadow that I'd created for the safari habitat and just plopped it underneath the little forest that I'd made. I did blend it into the habitat a little bit more than just popping it down, but it's a lot easier once you've already placed something and you know you like how it's set out. It's a lot easier just to then copy and paste it, really. I do a lot of that with the buildings as well. Once you've built something, you don't really need to do it again, and if you want to see how I did this little meadow, check out the safari video. I think it's the tunnel one with the giraffe thumbnail. I know I've been promising to do the safari habitat, but I've run out of ideas for it. I'll just be honest, it's fine. I don't always have to be like super creative, I guess, and know exactly what I'm doing. That's why it's always nice to have some suggestions. The subreddit for Planet Zoo is usually filled with people giving some suggestions for different DLCs. Some of them are quite funny, like you can tell they're kind of a joke, but I'm hoping we still will have some DLCs. But speaking of like different DLCs, what kind of things would you like to see in a future DLC for this game? I would probably like to see something that's not just solely focused on a continent, maybe like a theme. I think that would be kind of interesting. I'd like to see more things like what we had with the career mode scenarios. Not the timed ones, they can go in the bin. I hate those. But something with the career mode scenarios, like they would be power cuts and stuff. Kind of like how Jurassic World Evolution has some things. I have played that game, I just didn't do it on my channel, and I really like how some things work with the Jurassic World Evolution game, where there would be some kind of natural disaster like tornadoes and things like that that would damage the barriers, and let the dinosaurs out loose, but instead having like letting dangerous animals escape, I guess. And maybe there'd be like a challenge where we would have to get the animals into the trade centers as quick as possible before a natural disaster hit to keep them safe, or if you couldn't get them in, they would escape and make all your guests leave the zoo. I also added in another habitat web camera as well, so the guests can see inside the cave itself, see the lions having a little sleep maybe. I really enjoy these habitat web cameras. I forget about the waypoint thing. I don't even know what it's called, but yeah, I really like the habitat web cameras. Should really input some footage in and put it as like a little billboard video, but I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. I could probably watch a tutorial on YouTube on it or something, but I've been a little reluctant to add my own files in, especially with the FPS issues that I've been getting with this game. And I was pretty happy with how the habitat looked, but because I wanted to include an animal talk in this area, I wanted to make sure my guests had a little bit of a shelter from the hot African sun, I guess. So I wanted to make something a little organic feeling. Is that a better word for natural? I don't know. I'm using the wooden log pieces that came with the Africa pack, and I tried to make like a shade for the guests to stand under while the educator is doing an animal talk. I wanted this to follow the curve of the pathway, so I placed the little logs on top of the pathway markers. That kind of guaranteed me to have like a nice curve to this part. It definitely made my building job a little bit more difficult though, because I couldn't just keep everything in straight lines because it was slightly curved. It was kind of harder for me to make sure that everything was connected and in line with each other. I really like that the shape isn't exactly square or like rectangular. Again, it's kind of like more an organic, self-built sort of thing. I've been watching Building Off the Grid with my mum. I've watched way too many series of that, and I think it influences me quite a bit when it comes to building. We've had a little break from watching Building Off the Grid though because of the Olympics. There's been quite a few Welsh athletes in the Olympics this year. A girl from the valleys, which is kind of where I'm from. If you're from Wales, you can probably tell from my accent, but a girl from the valleys actually won a gold medal in boxing. Whoever gets gold medals in this Olympics will have a post box near their home painted gold, which I think is really cool. And I've also added a little bit of gold into this habitat. I must have been thinking about the Olympics. I really like these fence pieces and I haven't used them yet, so I wanted to include them in this build. Oh, I haven't used this yet. Let's see how this fits into my build and see whether I can play around with it and get it to work properly. All of the wood tones also match with the rest of the wood tones for the boathouse and the other buildings that I've included in this zoo as well. I like to make sure that the colours are the same for these buildings so it doesn't feel like one habitat is completely different to another. And my sunshade wasn't really working as a sunshade without a roof on it. And because I'd made it quite small-ish, I couldn't just use a roof piece. And of course, this was curved, not only flat, I don't know. It wasn't only curved on one angle, it was curved on the other angle too. So vertically and horizontally. See, when I can't figure out the right words, I use my hands. I'm so glad I have a webcam now. I've been doing this for a year and a half with a webcam. Christmas 2019. Wow. I use these like topper pieces. I really liked the pattern on that wood, like that little zigzag pattern, and it's on the inside of the roof piece as well as on the top. It's on the bottom too, so the guests can see it from underneath the shelter as well, to make it look more like it's for the lion habitat itself. I wanted to do a little bit of a lion sign on the shelter, and I really like this metallic one. Unfortunately there wasn't a reflected sign, so only one side has like the texture of the lion's mane, the other side is flat, which is kind of disappointing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We're on to the Pretties now. The lions love their habitat and I'm really happy with it. From one little image that kind of got my brain working, I guess. I'm really happy with how this turned out. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it off there. If you have any suggestions for any other habitat animals from the African continent so I can build a habitat for in this zoo, please let me know. I am open to any suggestions. That would be amazing. And let me know what you think of this habitat. I was so happy to see that my lion could actually stand on top of the waterfall and look over at the lands. Everything the light touches is yours, Simba. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!